Hello, and welcome to another episode of the LEI'D Back podcast, where we're talking about loving entrepreneurship and improving daily. I know for those of you that tuned in last week, you had a slightly worse episode. Our guest was pretty terrible because it was me talking about my top 10 tips for gift giving, but we want to get that out before the holidays because most people only give gifts in the holidays. I think that's the wrong way to go about it. I think today's guest would agree with me that only holiday gifts is the wrong way to go about it, but we're going to talk about something different because we've got Stacey Brown Randall on with us today. For those of you who don't know, Stacey is the multi-award-winning author of Generating Business Referrals Without Asking, host of the Roadmap to Referrals podcast, and a national speaker. I want to jump in for a second because, genuinely, her podcast is one of the biggest things for my firm. I was doing some of the stuff, but she spells out this entire framework and made me realize why what I was doing was working and why other things I was doing wasn't working by fitting them into the framework. So if you really want to get more referrals without asking, because that's the whole jam, and as lawyers who can't solicit, it's probably the best way to go about it instead of, violating our ethics rules and asking for things and soliciting people. Seriously, go check out the podcast, check out the group coaching, check her out. I'm excited to have her with us today. Stacey, welcome.
Jordan, it is always a pleasure. I always wonder what shirt you'll be wearing when we hop on to see each other actually over virtual live.
Okay, so for those of you who are listening to the podcast, I am wearing a blue and red Hawaiian shirt, and behind me is a blue and red background of sound dampeners. Somebody asked me if I changed the colors of my background to match the shirt, which I wish I could take credit for. It just happens to be my brand colors, and so I don't match my wall, but it is coordinated very well, I've been told.
It's funny because I wear green a lot. It's one of my, it's my main brand color.
And you have a green tree behind you for those people who can't see it.
Yes. And I don't know if I was intentional because it was like a green tree or like I need some greenery in this office because it's a lot of white shiplap. But it's interesting because I went to get dressed this morning. I was like, wait, I have to actually wear green today. I got to go see Jordan. I got to be on brand because I know he will be on brand with Hawaiian shirt. So you did not disappoint, my friend.
So, Stacey, here's what I want to talk about because you were telling people how to generate referrals without asking. So obviously, staying top of mind, building relationships, all of those things. I hate multitasking. I think it's ridiculous. It's not a real thing. It takes us up to 27 minutes to change things. When we switch gears, we don't get into a flow state, yada, yada, yada. So I'm all about multi-impact. So the conversation I really want to have is how do we have a fun life that also generates referrals instead of this weird, this is networking time and this is this time? How do we just integrate those things, combine them into one so that we can generate referrals while saving time, while saving money, and while enjoying the process?
There's not one specific right answer for exactly what that looks like because we're all a little bit different. And one of the things I love doing with my clients is the ability to help them customize what's going to work for them. We build everything that we do to generate referrals from our existing referral sources in a framework. And there's some pieces to the framework, right? People are like, oh, that's your secret sauce. I'm like, well, but there's a framework to how we build out what you're going to do. And part of that framework is what we call the platinum principles. And I talk about this in my book as well, but the platinum principles, number one is what does your referral source need? It's not about what's easy for you to do, but it's about what will have the impact to your referral sources. But the second platinum principle, and they're all equally important, and there are three of them. The second platinum principle is, but what's authentic for you, right? What are you willing to do? So when you pay attention to okay, what do my referral sources need? And then what works for me? What am I comfortable doing? How do I want to show up? What does this look like? When you are crystal clear about those two pieces, everything about the process becomes easier and more fun. And we all know when it's fun, right, it naturally is going to work better. And it also, if we're enjoying it, right, it'll be less time overall because we won't have any part of it we're actually dreading. So when we build out plans with our clients, it's really looking at, okay, first and foremost, it's not about you first, it's about them. So what do your referral sources need? They need way less than you think they do. And then what's authentic to you? I always tell my clients when we're talking through the different things they could do for their referral sources, gut check it. Every time we say, what about XYZ? Gut check it. Is that Do you want to do that? Would you do that? I mean, I worked with a personal injury attorney once, and she was like, Stacey, you make me host events or do a whole bunch of networking or a whole bunch of having to talk to people that I don't know. She was like, and I would rather literally pull my fingernails out. And I was like, okay, well, first of all, when we're doing stuff with our existing referral sources, they're not strangers, so we know them, but then that's not going to be a part of your outreach. We're not going to do that because that doesn't fit who you are. But if we are focused on what our referral sources need, if we're focused on what's authentic to us and we do our gut checks, then the third platinum principle, it makes it really easy to happen. And that's our ability to stay top of mind, which in my world is very different from keeping in touch. This is not an email drip campaign. This is your ability to stay top of mind and be memorable and meaningful. And so it makes it really easy to do the third if you've got the first and the second figured out.
So, I'm gonna say story time. It's not a specific story because it happens all the time. My wife is like very much the opposite of me in a good way when it comes to, she is way more introverted, I'm way more extroverted. We will go to these events and I will be like, oh my God, I caught up with so and so and I did this and I've talked to this person and what did you do? And she's like, oh, I met this new person and now we're best friends. We told each other our entire life stories for an hour and now like we're gonna go get coffee tomorrow and I have a new best friend. So like it's not, so if you heard the story before, it's not just like an introverted extroverted thing, but I do get that there are people that hate like meeting new people, but it's so weird to me that my wife, the introvert, will come out of every networking event with a new bestie and they will stay in touch for years and she will generate so much more work than me who will like say hello to 30 people and not be as focused in those type of events.
Yeah.
So
I did a podcast episode and I should know the number and I don't. I have 330 something episodes in. I don't remember all the episodes, but it was recent. It was somewhere in like, maybe it was like 331 or 329. I don't remember. But I did an episode on introverts and extroverts and referrals. And I think
yeah.
the big question is, I know you sometimes listen to the podcast. Maybe you remember the number, Jordan. I don't remember it, but
Sorry.
it's all good. But it's this idea that like people always say, well, Stacey, I don't have your personality. I am not a big extrovert. Like, will referrals work for me? And I'm like, it's not personality based, right? It's not like extroverts somehow have like this like competition that they always win in the relationship game. Introverts do that as well. And then as you noticed, right, is like sometimes better than the extroverts because they can go deep in conversations and really connect when we're like, beep, 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 pop, pop, right, like all over the room. And so people always say that. They're like, I'm an introvert, I'm not an extrovert. Will this work for me? And my response is it's not personality based. Extroverts don't have like some claiming of the territory that introverts don't have. Both create and develop relationships really well in their own ways, as uniquely as they are designed, which is perfect. The only way it doesn't work for you is if you're only in it for yourself, which effectively tells me that you're like dead inside. And you can be an introvert or an extrovert. If you're dead inside, it doesn't really matter. It's not going to ultimately work for you from that perspective.
And for the record, that was episode 331 that dropped on October 15th. And we'll probably put a link to at least the podcast page,
Thank
if
you.
not that episode. So,
I figured you could look it up for me quickly.
yeah, this is why we have a two-person show. We don't do it live anymore. So we can do things like this. So you mentioned this, make it about them, what's authentic to you to stay top of mind. So from the standpoint of living a life and enjoying the time and spending it with good people, like how does that work into the making it about them?
So I think this is the part that people overthink. Like sometimes I'll be talking to folks and they're like, okay, I need to teach them about my business. I'm like, they don't care about that. Like they do need to know what you do, right? It would be really bad if, Jordan, if I actually thought that you were like a chiropractor, complete and total misalignment, right, with what you actually do. So knowing what you do is important, but it's this idea that it's about building that relationship, right? It's about being focused on what they need, and what they really need more than anything is that thanked and acknowledgement. And that can look that can show up in a lot of different ways. And it doesn't have to look one way. So like, I think about like, from my perspective, most of my referral sources, like yourself, right, are not here where I am in North Carolina. They're all over the United States. They're all over international. I mean, I have people that I will never meet, right, that I am connected to and that refer clients to me. And so there's no way I would have in my plan, I'm going to take everybody to coffee because that's not ever going to happen. Right. And then, I have some folks, like I'll be working with some attorneys and they'll have like a dozen or so referral sources. And we're like, great, you could be able to do some one-on-one time. If that's like something you really should do one-on-one time, even if you're not like loving coffee all the time or, grabbing lunch at least once a year, you should really be doing in-person time with your referral sources. And so everybody can do that if your folks are local. But if your folks aren't local or you have like 60 or 70 of them, that's not exactly possible. So how we build out a plan has to be based on your capacity in addition to what they need, as well as what's going to work for you. So I don't do a lot of one-on-one time with my referral sources. I never do it in person, but I do make it a point to try to see people when I'm going to be in their area or when they're coming to my area to try to be like, how can I carve out time to go see them? Because that's actually really exciting when I'm like, I've been talking to you for years. You've been sending me clients. This is amazing. And now we get to grab lunch or whatever it is, like to see each other in person. Doesn't mean it always works out. I got 3 kids. I live a very busy life. Things are always happening in my world. And
You're
nobody,
a nationwide speaker and
right,
and the podcast, an
there's
author. And
there's a lot. And none of my kids will start driving and they're all of age. So, I mean, almost all but one are all of age. So, there's a lot of hand holding still happening in the Brown Randall household. So from that perspective, it really is paying attention to who are your people. And that's the point that people glaze over. They always jump to the, what do I do? And my response is always, I don't know yet. I will know, but I really need to know who you're doing it for. Like, are as an attorney, are all of your referral sources other attorneys? Because that may change what we ultimately end up doing. But do you also get referrals from your clients? Well, that could shift what we end up doing. Do you get referrals from other centers of influence or other professional services that aren't attorneys and they aren't your clients? Okay, well, that's going to kind of adjust the who, right? And then we're going to be like, well, where are they? Where are they located? What do they have in common? There's like a questionnaire you kind of need to ask yourself about who your people are. Then we can focus on the what we're going to do, because the what we're going to do is going to be easier than you think, but it's going to be different for every person. So when I build out a referral plan for like a criminal defense attorney in San Diego, it's going to look very different than the estate planning attorney that I built it out for that's in Raleigh, North Carolina. Like, they're just going to be different plans. And so people are always so into the what. And I'm like, very good question. Need to answer that second. The first question is who are your people? Because that gives us our boundaries and our parameters from which to build from.
And so I totally get that at like the macro group level. From like the micro individual one, the thing that's wild to me is I know who's going to be a good referral source if I look forward to hanging out with them. And I know I will look forward to spending that time if our conversation is going to answer this question for me. Like, if we are sitting there talking about the books that they like, the hobbies they have, the trips that they're taking, it's so much better than if it's like, so I do personal injury law and you treat personal injury patients, and this is the adjustment that we like right now, and this is what the case law like, oh my God. But
Terrible.
also, like, I don't know what to do with that person if we don't talk about anything life-wise. So there's like this interesting intersection between learning about them, which helps you know what they like, which helps you spend quality time with them doing those things that are about them and also authentic to you.
Yeah, I think in situations like that, when someone shows up and they're almost robotic about, okay, this is what I do, this is who I serve, who do you serve, and what does that look like? And it's a very like transactional, conversational. Unfortunately, I don't think they're like that. I think that they have been trained into that. And in reality, they're dying on the inside as much as you are trying to have that conversation with them. Like, okay,
Yeah.
let's talk about life. Because I mean, for me, I have teenagers, so I have full of funny stories to tell and make fun of my children that they don't necessarily know about. So there's always a way for me to like break the ice and talk about, get the conversation going, to learn about the other person, because that's what matters. Like, it's how you actually connect with the other person and how you show that you care. Because here's the other thing, like, we talk about like have a plan and connect with people, like, because you actually have to want to. That's the other piece that I think people kind of like, this needs to be genuine and authentic. I'm not asking you to have 7 million cups of coffee with strangers. You'll never see that in any of my plans. But I am going to probably say you can invest a little bit of time, even if it's over a virtual coffee over Zoom, which is what I have to do because I don't ever get to see my people in person. But you can still do that and have a great conversation. And if you can make it not about work, you're actually winning the game. Like, you're playing it well.
Right. Or And or you do have some lawyers who genuinely like that's all they have. It is I work 100 hours a week, I go home, I sleep, I do it again, and I have nothing else to talk about. And then I'm like, you're not my person. Sorry.
Then they
Bless
wouldn't end up
you.
on your right. More than likely, they probably won't refer to you and they won't end up
Yeah.
on the list
Well,
anyway.
I don't think they'll have time. I don't even know that they have time to like if they can't answer the phone if it's not a point one bill. So like
Right.
where are they getting this stuff? Anything else from the standpoint of it's about them before we move over to what's authentic to you?
No, I mean, I think that most folks, if you're sitting there thinking, okay, what do they need? And your mind is going through like all the things, come back to this one very true, crystal clear statement. They need to be thanked and acknowledged above and before all else. And I have people, it's crazy when, like in my line of work, I know other people don't see this information, but in my line of work, I can't tell you how often I will get a LinkedIn message where someone will stumble across me or find me and realize that I teach referrals and I teach like how to do it without asking and the thank you is part of the process. And they will like go off in the link and the messaging, not at me, but like, I can't believe I refer clients, my clients or people I know to other people, and they never even say thank you. Like, I'm like, yeah, do you keep referring to them? They're like, absolutely not. There's too many people who do the same thing for me to keep referring to someone who can't even show me, just an ounce of that thank you. I'm not saying you're going to unleash a river of referrals because you write thank you notes every now and again or every time you receive a referral, but it's certainly a baseline. So if you're like, what do my referral sources need above all else? They just need to know you care and they need to be thanked and acknowledged.
Well, and if okay, listen, if you I love passing referrals. I also understand that I am a weirdo for it because in essence somebody was like, "Hey, I have this problem." And Jordan was like, "I can't help you. However, I'm going to spend some time because I know the person who can help you. So I'm going to give myself slightly more work and vouch for this other person to make sure you go to the right place." And look, there's no truly altruistic thing, and I want them to come back to me, and yada 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 yada. All those caveats aside, but like that's not a normal thing. Like I am gonna put in more work to help somebody else help somebody else. So like it's not just thank you for referring to me. It's like thank you for being the person who takes this on your plate to make this connection happen instead of just being like, oh, just come back to me when it's a car accident. Come back to me when it's an estate plan. Come back to me when it's a, whatever you do. Like that's the normal response, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to like, if you want me to remember you, give me a reason. And the reason's going to be because you showed that you cared.
For me, it's the Hawaiian shirt.
Well, okay,
That's
that right. Your brand will help in that too, right? Like, but I mean, at the end of the day, a Hawaiian shirt or not, right? Like, if you weren't helpful and like people weren't like, oh yeah, Jordan was great. Here's the thing, there's a whole like part of like behavioral economics that goes into the science perspective of what we teach when it comes to referrals. And I believe that behavioral economics can be used for evil or it can be used for good. And we only use it for good. And the truth is there is going to be a part of reciprocity when you are referring other people. You do build up in the other person like, oh my gosh, Jordan has referred to me a couple of times. Okay, let's take our relationship first. Like you have referred people to me before. I don't know anybody who's ever gotten into a car accident or an accident anywhere near you where I could refer to the law firm, right? Like I may never be able to make that referral in that way, right? You do other things now, so that makes it a little bit easier for me. But when you were just like when it's just the law firm, like I don't know. I'm in North Carolina. I don't ever like maybe if someone does, right? Maybe that'll happen. But like the idea here from that perspective is that this isn't like, oh, if I'm referring to you, that'll build reciprocity and you'll refer back to me. No, that just is like a good, right thing to do and kind of puts it out there. And reciprocity does build, but it also is a part of don't ever make it about because someone refers to you, you have to refer back to them. No, what you need to do is just take care of them and let them know, be thanked and acknowledge that you appreciate what they do. You don't have to necessarily be able to refer back to them. And I think a lot of people get stuck there. Like, I can only develop relationships from people where it's mutually beneficial for us to refer to each other. And I'm like,
right.
well, then you're leaving so much on the table. It's ridiculous.
Well, it's the Adam Grant book, Give and Take. Have you read it?
Yep.
Like it is totally that matcher mentality. And like it's not even a taker mentality. It's not even like I'm gonna take these things. It's like I need to match these things up, which is okay, but like, I don't know, giver, like the more I give, the more I get. And again, no
Yep.
truly altruistic thing. Like
Well,
there's
well,
something in there.
I always say this, Bob Berg wasn't wrong when he wrote his book, Go Giver.
Yeah,
Do receive. It may not show up in the way you think, and it may not show up one for one, but it'll absolutely show up.
totally. All right. So, oh, the other thing I wanted to highlight, uh, so Stacey's talking about making it about them. I have also found a ton of success about making it about like their support team. So my assistant calling their assistant for a better gift or what restaurant to go to or something like that. And then we'll send their assistant a Starbucks card, a Target card, a gas card, something like that. It's amazing to me how many more cases I've gotten now that like their gatekeeper of their leads also likes me. Plus, like, I don't, as lawyers, we get a ton of stuff. I don't think my staff gets nearly as much. So anytime you send something to me, I am sharing it with the rest of the team. And I hope you're doing the same. But like having that specific targeted moment to their support system, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a kid, whether it's an assistant, like whatever, goes so far, I think I have found.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's an extra step that people, that reminds me of those things that people have the best of intentions about, and then their intentions go to die somewhere, right? Which means they don't matter if we don't actually follow through. But yes, anytime that you have that type of that like relationship where you are able to, hey, we're getting referrals from this person, but actually there's a team of people and there's other people making the referrals happen. Sometimes that's not the case, right? And when attorney to attorney referrals happen, sometimes it is attorney to attorney, and that's the relationship you need to make sure that you're taking care of. But the minute you know that there is actually other people on the team making and facilitating those referrals to you, yes, you should expand what you're ultimately thinking about doing when it comes to taking care of everybody. So, like, I have one professional services person who refers a lot of business to me, and then it was like probably about a year ago, it's like, hey, actually, I started hearing other names from the same firm, but other names. And I'd be like, who is that? And like, I'm the person they refer now, but everybody does it. So I'm like, oh, we need
Oh,
to expand what I'm doing
gotcha.
now. It's not just to the head founder, CEO of the business. Now there's a layer within operations and account managers that know, hey, if referrals are a problem, the person we trust is Stacey. And so now I'll start seeing other, and this has recently started happening. I'm seeing other names come up from that firm, and I'm like, oh, got it. There's other people, there's other relationships to nurture. And, I guess you can look at that in one or two ways. For me, it's like greater opportunity. It's like more humans to love on. Yes, logistically, it'll be more. Budget wise, it'll be a little bit more depending on what I'm doing. And in some cases, it won't be logistically or budget even more depending on what I'm doing. You do have to pay attention to virtual offices versus everybody being in an office, because
Mm,
that's not as, commonplace as it used to be prior to COVID. And so, yeah, there's more lift to it. But for me, it's like, it's more clients. Like, I think that's ridiculous for people who are like, oh, now I have to add in the support staff or the gatekeeper or somebody else on their team. I'm like, no, you get to. You get
yes.
to take care
Yeah.
of more people because more people are sending business to you. And so sometimes you do have to switch your mentality around that as well.
And that's a great lead in because I'd also want to highlight the opposite. So, like, I own a PI firm. I don't do the work. So, I haven't talked to a client in like 5 years at this point. And it is weird to me if you are trying to get referrals of my accident victims for your office, for your surgeries, for whatever, and you are rude to my staff to try to get to me to be super nice to me for me to make the referral decision when I'm not the one making the referral decision anyway. Like it's the lawyer on the case or the paralegal on the case or, whomever answered the phone. That is always like, definitely don't do that.
Yeah, that is
So,
so wrong.
all right. So we're gonna switch over to what's authentic to you, but before that, I'm gonna talk about this week's newsletter because it goes right into this. So I figured out among writing hundreds of thousands of words that in essence, there's really only 9 ways that you can change anything that happens at your business. And so this week's newsletter is the 5 ways you can use people to help you get more done. So we're going to talk about hiring, we're going to talk about training up people, we're going to talk about delegating, those things. And then next week, we'll do the 4 non-people related things. So I hope you'll check that out on Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern time when my free newsletter comes out. If you're not already signed up for it, now's a great time to do it. We'll have a link below or jordanostroff.com. That being said, as a great segue from people, now it's the second part you talked about. What's authentic to you? So how do we figure out what's authentic to us?
So it's really interesting my coaching program is called Building a Referable Business, or BRB for short. And as part of my coaching program, there is a bonus, which is a 2-day in-person retreat that we do every year in December in Charlotte. And when my assistant and I are in prep mode for that retreat, obviously, as you can imagine, the members flying in across the country and coming in for this event where there's a lot of logisticals. But one of my favorite things that we get to do is we put together the list of the touch points, the outreaches that our clients have done as part of their referral source plans throughout the year, the things we've heard about, the things we've heard that went well. And there's some like trusted ones that stay on the list year after year. And we create this list for our clients and we share it with them at the retreat. It's like the gift that they get, among other things, for coming to the retreat. And it's like the 50 plus ways, right? 50, more than 50. There are more than 50 ways on there to do touch points to your referral sources, more than 50. And you usually only need 5 or 6, maybe 7 in a year, depending on what you're trying to accomplish and who you're doing it for. And so when people always say, like, what should I do? I'm like, do you have any idea how many options we have? But here's
Anything.
the thing. It's 50 of them. You can be sure that people are looking at that list every year at the retreat as we're building out the next year plan, right? So this year's retreat, we'll be building out the 2025 plan for them. And they're looking at the list and you can hear it. Oh, no, I wouldn't do that. Oh, that sounds amazing. It's a gut check. It really does come down to that. Sure, within the clients that I work with, there are specific things that I want you doing, and I'll tell you what those are. But there's also the opportunity to make some other decisions as to what is going to be authentic to you. But that all comes down to a gut check. Do you love hosting events? Well, maybe you want to do an event for your referral sources. Does the idea of hosting an event make you want to run under the table? Then you probably shouldn't put that on your list because hosting events is not your jam. But there's so many different things that you can do. Usually the problem that I find with folks is now they have too many ideas. We have to scale that back because I'm like, you only get 5. Now the 5 look different from year 1 to year 2 because the first year I'm a little bit more boundary specific on some of the things I have my clients do. It's a little bit of that secret sauce that we put into place. But by year 2, 3, 4, 5, right, 10, whatever it is, there's a little bit more flexibility and room to try and do different things. But it is all it. I mean, when you ask about what's authentic and what we should be doing when it comes to us, it's what are you thinking about doing and how do you feel about that? And then ask, if I were the receiver of that, how would I feel? And that, I mean, everything I do with my clients, every touch point we come up with, every language piece I write, every direct message thing I help a client figure out, like everything we do from what we're doing to what we're saying, I always tell them, I'm not thinking about you when I'm writing this. I'm thinking about the person who's about to receive it. And I'm thinking about how it's going to land with them. And that's what matters most. And so that's the other thing you have to keep in mind. Like, gut check it for yourself. And then you can also make sure, yep, this is something they probably need to.
Have you seen the movie Soul, the Pixar movie?
I don't think so.
Okay, so if there's a movie that involves a talking cat that I talk about more than any other one, it is this one. But in essence, like, so it's soul music and the soul in the body, and they
Okay.
have this hall of interest that they walk the souls in before they go into somebody, and they get to like try everything out. Like, if you are struggling for what am I interested in or what am I willing to do, just watch the movie Soul. It's phenomenal. It's an hour and a half, but like there's thousands of things that like the souls are trying out before they go into a body to find their passion, their spark, their interest, whatever. Otherwise, like, just ask people. Like, I have asked my, referral source, what are you into? This. Cool. That sounds interesting. Like, how does one try that out for the first time? And so like pickleball, that's popular now. I love it. And
Super popular.
yeah, disc golf. I've had a ton of referral sources being like, oh, I want to try out disc golf. Great, let's go. Like, it is easily accessible. We are not going to throw discs at each other's face. There's not a situation where like you are in danger for being by yourself unless you step into an ant pile. That's probably the worst thing that could happen.
And that is
So
actually
yeah.
pretty bad. I've done that.
Well, but like racquetball. I used to play racquetball a ton in law school. I will not go play racquetball with a newbie in doubles because like someone's gonna get hit with a metal racket. Like, you're in the same space. But like
Right.
disc golf or pickleball, like, we're not, it's okay. We're not gonna have the violence.
That's true.
Um,
You said something really key there. I mean, you said like if it's going to be fun, like go do it with your referral source. And some things when you can go do things with them is the best way to connect. I mean, it's at the top of my list for ways to form deeper, faster connections with folks. And here's what I want to say about that. If you're hearing Jordan and I talk about this and you're like, I would never make time for that, or I could never have time for that. I just want to encourage you just to take some time and sit with that for a minute and think about the reverse of that or the opposite of that, right? Yes, what we're talking about may sound like it takes time, but if your next 10 cases show up and you don't have to do anything else to get them, but they're coming from those referral sources and those referral relationships, and you went and had fun with somebody, or you maybe sent a gift to somebody, or whatever it is, trust me, when you see it start working, you'll be like, best use of my time. And I do know from that perspective, it will save you time too. I mean, like, I know a lot of law firms that spend lots of money, like double digits in dollars in other areas growing their firm, and they're all good, right? And they all can work and they all can be good, but you should, at a bare minimum, but it really should be your baseline of how you run your firm, in my personal opinion, is also just having that set aside time to take care of the people who can give you the easiest type of new client. That's going to be one that's going to be referred to you.
I mean, in 2017, my firm spent about $135,000 on marketing. In 2018, we spent like my kid was born, so like almost zero lunches, stuff like that. The firm made $5,000 less, saving $130,000, and me having a child
Yep.
in March. So yeah, so it's definitely a way to save money. But also like I eat food usually 2 or 3 times a day. I don't drink coffee, but I know most lawyers do. I get 10,000 steps a day. Like there are things you are already doing that you can tack on spending time with another cool human being too, in a way that allows you to accomplish that, plus stay top of mind with them, plus build a connection, plus, whatever. Like
Yeah.
it's fun.
And just whatever that looks like for you, like there's a customization out there that it doesn't have to look exactly how I do it. It doesn't have to look exactly how Jordan does it, but there is something that is right for you that is also first and foremost right for your referral sources. It just, I mean, it's like anything. Like you just need to be willing to spend a little time and energy and probably some effort figuring it out. And then, of course, making sure that it happens. And anything that we can process and make it automated so we don't have to touch, great. But there will be some human to human interaction here. So, there will be a little bit of time spent in that regard.
Well, and I think the beauty of it is like, look, I'm not telling you to spend $30,000 on a brand new website. I'm not telling you to launch the next fire festival. I'm not telling you to get a $200,000 billboard campaign. Like you could do one event for $1,000 and have it go terribly and learn a ton from it. You could go to one lunch and hate the whole process and learn from that. Like you can take some of these, you can learn by doing some of these things in a way that isn't going to tank your entire business.
Yeah, and it really is important that when you think about what you're going to do for your referral sources, that this is not your newsletter that you send out every week, even though you and I both have them and ours are both great. I'll just speak for me and for you, right?
Thank
Newsletters are
you.
great.
Where
I
do I
mean,
send the money for the shout out?
right. Newsletters are great, right? You should have that. It's part of your marketing. It's part of your prospecting, but that's not going to necessarily what I'm going to allow to be on your plan when it comes to generating referrals. Can your newsletter that you send out, can the social media that you're posting, can the other ways that you're doing get some recognition factor that maybe it'll trigger someone to refer you? Yes, but you need a much better and stronger targeted approach to the humans that actually do refer you or can refer you that is ultimately going to work. And so you got to be willing to kind of flip this a little bit in terms of how people think about it. But there's things that we do that will generate referrals. And then there's other things that we do that support the prospecting and the marketing of our companies as well. And I think that's the thing that people have to figure out how to separate in their mind, right? Like a lot of times I'll talk to someone, they'll be like, what's like the 12 emails I need to send out? Or can I just send a card for like every national major holiday? And I'm like, no, you cannot. That's not impactful. There's nothing memorable about you sending me a holiday card for every freaking holiday that exists or every national day that exists. Or, you can't just, send me a newsletter every week or every month and
Or
think that,
jam of the month or a Yeti cup with the firm's logo on it or
I mean, I know there are some people who don't have enough Yetis in their lives, but most of us have as many Yetis, coffee cups, and Stanleys as we're ever going to need. But my point is that there is a way to customize that and create that works for your referral sources. You're just going to have to spend a little time figuring it out. And that means you have to care and you have to want to do it. And you really got to answer that question first.
so Before we wrap up the what's authentic to you and move into the staying top of mind, anything else on authentic to you, the
We got that.
referral source
We got that
searcher?
pretty covered.
All right. So before we jump into stay top of mind, I want to talk about next week's guest. We are continuing the North Carolina love. So we'll have Terrell Turner on next week. I did not intentionally do that. Stacey and Terrell almost share a Starbucks.
Oh,
But Terrell's going to talk to us about finances. So we were talking about how to own a business you can be proud of, live a life that's even better. So let's talk about the finances of like having a good life. I'm super excited because I have no idea what we're going to talk about because this is the part that I struggle with. I know my numbers, but I don't know how to tell somebody else theirs. So hopefully Terrell is going to fill that in on us next week. That being said, we still have Stacey. So I want to hear, in terms of staying top of mind with these referral sources while having a great life, while enjoying the process, like what insight and wisdom do you have for us on that?
yeah. So I do want to just mention a quick thing about Terrell. If
Oh,
you
sure.
in the conversation with him, he took, I think it was one of my videos or podcast episodes that I did on something I was teaching people how to do tracking, and then he broke it down from a numbers perspective.
Yeah. And he's got
It's
a
a
whole, right now, there's a free sign up he has that will like do this for you from a ROI perspective. Like he's got some cool stuff out there and he's a good dude.
He is awesome. I remember when he was building it out, he was like, "Hey, will you watch this and make sure I got this right?" Basically, because he was like, "It's the stuff that they need to be tracking that you tell them to track from referrals, and I want to put it into actual numbers so they know what this means." And I was like, he nailed it. So definitely make sure he talks about that, or at least that video. And here back to your question about top of mind. In some cases, this is the number of times you do something in a 12-month period. We typically fall somewhere between 5 and 6, sometimes 7 outreaches or touch points in a year. But also, it has more to do with the fact that what you're doing has impact and it's more memorable and meaningful. And when you do those things, is what I tell folks, when you do things that are memorable and meaningful, we call them minding your M&Ms. When you do things that are memorable and meaningful, you get to do less of them because people remember them, right? And there can be some like breaks in between when you're doing something, right? Even doing something 5 times a year is not every month or every other month, right? There's some breaks, there's a cadence to it. You can cluster things, certain times of the year and not like there's so much to it in terms of your ability to stay top of mind, but it's not your newsletter. Good, have it. We both agree with that, right? It's not your newsletter, it's not your social media posting. It's got to be more than that of what you're going to do that's going to allow you to like really connect with your referral sources. Because here's what you're after. When you're trying to stay top of mind, you're after your referral source being impacted, right? We want to impact how they feel. And it's how they feel about you, which is, wow, Jordan is different and he shows up and he doesn't forget about me and he really cares. And we do that in a multitude of different ways, right? But the reality of it is you don't have to be doing that every day, every week, or even every month for it to have impact if you're doing the right things. But again, the what you decide to do starts with the who you're doing it for. But I always tell folks, don't ghost your referral sources and get so busy that you don't talk to them for 6 months. So have a cadence behind the scenes that even if your teammates and your staff are helping you implement it, that's fine, right? But make sure there's a cadence and there's a rhythm to it because, 5, 6 times a year and what we're looking at doing, it really just depends. But if you're doing the right things that are memorable and meaningful, you ultimately stay top of mind.
Well, and I think you can, I mean, obviously you're saving time if you're doing 5 or 6 touch points instead of 24, and you're probably saving money because you're investing them in the more impactful things instead of like, it is amazing to me the amount of money you can spend sending like unmemorable cookies to people through the mail. And don't get me wrong, I have been sent some that were phenomenal. Jay Ruane has I think it's a mini cupcake person, top tier. But like, it's amazing to me how many of them are utterly forgettable. So like finding the right thing, finding the right feel for your brand, the thing that's memorable, the thing that's looked forward to, the thing that stands out. I love how you're pushing this.
And the other thing is that what we're doing is what we call mass personalization. So that touch point number 1 or touch point number 4 is the same for everybody who's receiving it. Right. So it's not like but what we're doing allows it to feel personalized when they're receiving it. Now, if you're deciding to go for a walk with somebody as like your in-person time, like you may be doing one-on-one time with all of your referral sources over a couple of months or something like that. And that's going to be individualized, of course. But like if we are sending a gift or we are doing something specific, we're all going to get the same thing. Your referral sources don't necessarily know that they're all getting it like other people who are referring to you. But if you're doing the thing that is memorable and meaningful and allows you to stay top of mind, because it goes back to platinum principle number one, it's all about them, it will feel very personalized when they receive it. But because you're doing the same thing for everybody, it also allows you just to manage the workflow and the logistics behind it. But to your point, this doesn't mean we just push a button and send out the same cookies every single year, unless you know that like people die for your cookies or whatever the thing is that you're sending out. So yeah, I mean, you got to show, a little discernment there.
Well, and that was the thing that I talked about in last week's episode with our 10 tips for gift giving. Like if you send out the same holiday gift to everybody, well, one, you wouldn't necessarily have the time to customize a holiday gift to everybody at the time that you are buying, 100 gifts for 100 different people. And then two, everybody's getting holiday gifts. So instead of like finding the right moment for them or the right uniqueness for them, I like that you've got this together in a way that stands out.
Yeah, it's year round. Year round being memorable and meaningful, but doing it in a way where the capacity and the logistics are managed in a way that works. Like I'm all about, can we save you time while also maximizing the impact that you ultimately want? That doesn't mean there's not still work to do, but it's, definitely better than some of the other things we have to do.
Yeah. And I love like networking, and I am putting work in hard quotes because it's funny to me when I tell people what I actually do, and they're like, "Oh, lunch and golf and and movies and stuff with your friends. Like that sounds, I wish I could do that." And I'm like, "But you can," as opposed to the people who get it who are like, "And how much money does that drive to your firm?" And I'm like, "Almost all of it." Like right at this point, either client referrals who probably came in from referrals from us doing fun stuff with people, or the parties we host, or whatever. Like that's, it is millions of dollars worth of cases in a way where I enjoy it. Like that's the point I think that we need to stress here. Like this should be enjoyable to you.
Yeah.
Spending time with people,
When
spending
I
the time
used to
buying these things, whatever.
Right. When I used to be a productivity coach, so I had a lot more local clients. I used to do a backyard movie party, and it was for my clients and my referral sources to come and bring their partner and their children. So, of course, my referral sources and my clients were like, oh, good, I have to get a sitter. Like the entertainment is at Stacey's, and we had like the big inflatable movie screen. I think I talk about this in my book, but it's like the big inflatable movie screen. And then we would have food out or whatever, it'd all be movie style themed. And the running joke was, because I did this a couple of years in a row, there was always a Pinterest fail. Like every year I would try something new and different, and I am not good in the kitchen at all. And it would fail miserably, but it kind of became like this running joke. But like my referral sources and my clients loved coming to that. I mean, my husband was like, we really can't handle 50 people in our backyard. Like, I know you keep thinking that we can, but I'm like, oh no, there's room for more. It's fine. But people would come and bring their chairs, and they'd have movie theater popcorn and snacks and stuff, and they'd sit, and then we would watch, like, depending on the age of the children, I always kind of did a gauge of like, can we get away with something like a Hocus Pocus, or do we need to watch the Charlie Brown Great Pumpkin? Like whatever it is. And it was one of the best things that we did. But I love entertaining. My husband owned a restaurant, was in hospitality forever. So like that's kind of our jam. So it works for us. But it was like, talk about like everybody there at once and everybody feeling good. And those always were great from a referral perspective for me as well.
Yeah, so we do a Cinco de Mayo party because my birthday is on Cinco de Mayo, so it's a double thing. But like last year we got one of those inflatable axe throwing, and like to be clear, everybody, the axes were felt. They were not like real metal. And so for the first like hour and a half, all the kids there are throwing them. And then by like the last hour, hour and a half, you had adults who had had like a couple too many tequilas or margaritas or whatever, who were trying to see like how far back they could get the axes going. And like everybody had so much fun. It was great and nobody got hurt.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, "Oh my God, it's a kid-friendly event." And I was like, "Yeah, we're gonna let them throw axes, but they're inflatable, so."
Everybody will be like, it's here's the thing. You knew to do that when you looked at the who was on your list. And you realize, hey, we got a lot of folks with kids. So like this would work. Maybe if I didn't have kids and you were throwing that event, maybe I'd be like, thanks for the invite. I'm not coming. I don't want to hang out with anybody else's kids. Right. But it doesn't mean it's not impactful. And so you determined what to do based on who you would ultimately be doing it for. And that informs a lot of what we do.
Yeah, well, and I have a kid, and my sitter is usually family, and I'd rather have them at the party too. So it was two birds, one stone, three birds, one stone, maybe. And we got
Lots
referrals.
of birds, one stone.
Okay, so for anybody who's been listening and is smart enough to know that they want some more Stacey Brown Randall insight wisdom in their life, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
So the website is kind of the home base of everything that you need. It's stacybrownrandall.com, and Stacey is spelled with an E. I know you'll put it in the show notes for the person just listening. Now they know to put the E in Stacey. But when you go there, you can find out more about my podcast. If you're a podcast listener, already listened to this one, there's always room for one more, I think, when we're hitting subscribe. Roadmaps to referrals. If you're like to read books, I've got audio, e-reader, of course, the printed version. Everything's there on the home base, and even how to work with me. It's like right there on the homepage. It's like all very clear. Like, what does it look like if you want to learn a little bit more? Then read the book. Let's start listening to the podcast. If you want to learn more about working with me, it's all right there on the homepage of the website, stacybrownrandall.com.
Awesome. All right, so that being said, we hope to see you all back next week for Terrell Turner's episode. He's going to talk to us about the money aspect of living a great life. I'm hoping he'll answer for us what is enough financially, because I think that's the problem that we get into where we always want more, but we'll see what happens. It's next week's episode. I know it'll be great. What's your biggest piece of advice to help people live a great life? Like, it could be something we've said, it could be totally different, but like, I want to help more people get out of this weird, like, live your life by a billable hour number and instead enjoy it. So what's the best insight on that from you?
Well, there's probably lots of advice I could give, but let me keep it within the referral family of my answer. If you do nothing else but just take time to review where your clients and the prospects that did not become clients have come from, and just start identifying, like when you say you get a bunch of referrals, what does that mean exactly? I can't tell you how many law firm owners I talk to, and they're like, yeah, we get all our business from referrals. And then they go in and they start digging. They're like, no, we don't. I'm like, I know, because you just think you do. And you just kind of apply that. You got a couple of referrals, you kind of apply that. Or the opposite, which is even better, you don't know if you do get a lot of referrals, and then you run the data and you're like, holy cow, we get all these referrals and we're not doing anything to take care of these people. It is an amazing feeling, no matter how large or how small the list is. If you can identify who are your referral sources, the people who are referring or trying to refer cases to you and clients to you, if you will know who those people are, you will feel good about your business, because right there, whether it's 5 names or 55 names, tells you in black and white that you do good work and that you are worthy of their reputation on the line. And that will make you feel better. And then hopefully it'll make you say, now let's take better care of them so I can get more referrals from them as well.
And I touched on this in your bio, but I want to hammer it right here. If it's a situation where people tell you there are a ton of referrals for you, but you can't find them, I do want to highlight that most of the time people don't know how to refer to lawyers. If it's other lawyers, fine. But like, we can't call other people first. We can't solicit business. Every state has slightly different rules. But like, a lot of times people will say like, I gave you a referral. I told so-and-so to call you, or they email me to call the client. And I'm always like, I can't do this first. This is how I need it to happen. So that becomes a really good way to get more referrals, by training your referrals on the lawyer solicitation, or by following what Stacey says and just getting the referrals without asking. So
absolutely.
All right. Thank you to everybody who watched and listened. Stacey, thank you for being with us. We'll see you all back next week, December 10th, 6 p.m. Eastern time, for Terrell Turner's episode. Have a great day, everybody.